What is good, everyone? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. And today we have a special guest, Ryan Mathews from Mathew Sports Analysis. He's a young and aspiring YouTuber, but that doesn't mean he cannot provide with us with a lot of value. He's going to be providing us a ton of value on the Chicago Bears and the NFL. So I'm really excited to have Mathew with us. But first, Mathew, I want to get your origin story. How did you get into sports? I know you're an Ohio State fan. We talked about earlier about how you were an Ohio State fan. So talk to me how you got into sports. Talk to me about what led you to start a YouTube channel, because you were talking about it before and it was pretty inspiring. So give my audience here a dose of inspiration.
For sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me. So my dad taught me all the rules and everything of the games that we would watch, from baseball to football to basketball. And I just fell in love with it from the jump. I remember being an hour and a half away from Chicago. It's always been nice to follow Chicago teams because, I mean, they always find a way to make it entertaining, whether or not they're good. But I mean, I remember, watching those games with him, whether it was the Bulls, the Blackhawks, the Cubs, the Bears, just being there with him and everything, being able to spend time with him and watch these games, as well as being able to talk to him on long car rides and stuff about this, is just, it made me feel like I fit in with more of the guys of, the upper levels of the family. But yeah, and then as far as my YouTube channel goes, I remember I just really needed some inspiration and some motivation to get going and get me on my feet. My uncle actually told me that I should get this thing going. I was told by a lot of family members that I'd be really good at working in this kind of field. So I'm really looking to get into more like the broadcasting or journalism side of sports. But until then, I'm putting some content out on YouTube, getting some things going, and it's a work in progress, but we're getting on our feet. So I like where I'm at.
Yeah. Now, what really led you to kind of start your YouTube channel? I know you were talking about before how an injury led to this, and it's funny how one moment can lead to better moments. I remember when I got rejected by a company, this company here in Naperville, and they said like, hey, we can't hire you. And that led me to start my podcast. It's funny how rejections from girls or from other things can like inspire you to be better. So, Absolutely. But for yourself, it wasn't really a rejection, but it was an unfortunate event. It was an injury that led you to start your YouTube channel. So speak to my audience on that and how your injury led to you starting a YouTube channel.
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember it was week 4 of my senior year. I was playing football, and I just so happened to tear my ACL on probably the biggest game of the year. It was the senior night homecoming, and it was my birthday, all in one game. So being able to go through that was really tough, because playing sports was like something that really mattered to me. I really relied on that. And so I tried to find a new passion in the meantime, because I had nothing really else to do. So until then, I started a Bears Instagram page, which unfortunately I kind of started slacking off, haven't really paid attention to right now, but I started leaning more towards Twitter because it's easier to put more content out there. And so I started reporting on my own right there. And then I actually got in touch with Eric Lambert from sportsmockery.com and started talking to him about how to get into the field, what to do. And he was able to kind of mentor me on that. So shout out to Eric. He's a good guy. But I started going by my own name on Twitter instead of, Dub Bears News or whatever I had going for me on Twitter. I started going by my own name, reporting on my own and everything. And so far, so good. It was a blessing in disguise, to say the least.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. I mean, I think that's something that happens to almost everyone. I think like a big moment changes us. Like, when you get rejected by a girl, I think that kind of, helps you get into inspiration, helps you become a better person. So I definitely have to agree with you on that. But, I've been asking every single one of my audience members this. I don't know if you watched my interviews, Ryan, but the first question I asked, which all of you guys here know the question that I asked, and that is April 29th, 2021. There'll be a moment that me as a Bears fan, I would never forget because it would change our franchise. We would shock the world, shock the entire NFL, shock the sports world by getting up from number 20 to number 11. I mean, I don't even know how big this event will be. Well, I don't know what people are going to think when they see this 5-10 years from now. This event was big. And the fact that we made the playoffs, that we made it as a wild card team and was able to get arguably the second best quarterback in Justin Fields, who, if Trevor Lawrence was not in this job, Justin would have gone number 1 overall. The fact that we were able to select Justin Fields shocked the entire sports world and shocked every single Chicago Bears fan. I personally wanted this to happen, but I didn't expect it to happen, and I was shocked. But what about you, Ryan? What were the emotions going for you when the Bears drafted Justin Fields? I mean, where were you when the Bears drafted Justin Fields, and what was your reaction?
It's the age-old question, man. It's going to be the question for the next 10 years, hopefully. I remember I was sitting in my living room with my dad, my girlfriend, and my stepmom, and we were all just watching the draft. It was something that really, really meant a lot to me because, I mean, being into, the sports analysis side, the journalism, the Twitter reporting and everything, watching this draft meant a lot to me. And so being able to, and as an Ohio State fan as well, being able to see this fall through was absolutely shocking to me. I remember, sitting in between classes in high school making mock drafts about how, the Bears weren't even going to be in the realm of possibilities of Justin Fields dropping to them. But it happened. Thank God it happened. And Chicago, I think we got our guy.
Yeah, I mean, on that day, I think it was a Thursday, right? So I don't think I had any class on Thursday. I mean, I'm in college, so I didn't have any class on Thursday, and it was also all online. So literally, well, maybe I don't even remember if I had class. So that day I was like, you know what? I literally had a mock draft video, like a projection video out, like 3 hours before the draft, and I was like, hey, if I post this video, maybe just out of maybe I will get blessed and the Chicago Bears will draft Justin Fields. And lo and behold, that happened. And I was surprised. I mean, I thought at 20, we would go with Kirsten Darisaw, Kevin Jenkins. I thought we would go tackle, or maybe someone like Elijah Moore from Ole Miss. I thought we'd go with him at 20. But Justin Fields, I did not expect at all. And I'm just shocked that Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy were able to get him. Now, Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy have an important decision to make. And that is, are you going to start Justin Fields this season? Are you going to start Justin Fields for the rest of the season? Are you going to bench him? Ryan, in your thoughts, what should be happening? What do you think, as a sports analyst, as a Bears fan, should be happening? Do you believe that Justin Fields should be starting next week against the Raiders? And right now, at the time that we're speaking, I don't know the score of the Chargers and Raiders game, but the last time I checked, it was 21-0. This is a very beatable Raiders team. And I think that if we start the right quarterback, we can easily pull an upset win. But I think we have the best chance to win with Justin Fields. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. And you make a good point. As we were watching the Chargers and Raiders game, actually, the Raiders cornerback, I don't know the name right off the bat, but I do know he just got injured. So as a deep threat quarterback, I can definitely see the Bears taking advantage of that player. But when it comes to Justin Fields starting, I do believe that the Bears and Fields have more to work on than people see. Although he has an impressive deep ball and movement outside the pocket, Chicago doesn't like to utilize as much, or they don't like to utilize that as much as they should. If you watched Fields play at Ohio State, you'd see a lot of deep plays, including a mix of crossing routes and running plays to keep J.K. Dobbins and Trey Sermon in the mix. But Fields needs to learn how to secure the ball if he's going to be a rushing threat in the future. He struggled with keeping the ball in his hands while scrambling outside, and if it wasn't for his outstanding amount of hustle, he would have costed the Bears a win against Cincinnati and a touchdown against Detroit. Both plays had an open field behind them, and that's something that he would need to work on. It's something that I think is very important if it means the success of the Bears. And I mean, it's obvious that we can definitely look at the positives because we're very optimistic Bears fans, but there comes a time in which you need to look at the negatives before we can even move on to the realm of hope and possibility.
Yeah, I think that's one of the problems with Justin Fields is that fumbling issue because, in that win, we didn't really look at what happened. We didn't really look at the burst play that Justin Fields had. And that was that fumble twice at Soldier Field. This has happened. Now, I wouldn't be concerned if it happened once, but as Justin Fields said, he's a guy who likes to learn from his mistakes, and I truly believe that he will. I truly believe that in a year from now, we're going to be talking about a whole different story right now. Justin Fields is going to be one of the best quarterbacks, and this is going to mean nothing. But right now, if you're Justin Fields, you have to work on securing that ball. You can't be going back 20 yards and then finding your open receiver. You can't be playing the hero ball. And that's what Justin Fields said in one of his first press conferences. Hey, one of the things that I have to work on from Ohio State is being that hero. And I think that's some of the things that Justin Fields has to work on. However, what I think on the contrary to kind of what you said is that I don't think that Justin Fields is going to learn from if he gets that playing experience. You and I both were in high school. You and I both are now in college. I'm a senior, you're a freshman. I'm sure you've had tests by now. And the best way that you learn from a test is by getting that experience, by studying, by answering those questions, by in math class, doing the problems. You just don't learn from just, watching a professor do the problems or watching a teacher doing the problems. I think everyone who's watching my YouTube channel can relate to this because we've all studied for tests. I mean, it's something that we all want to do good on. We're all hard workers in school, and you just learn by doing the actual material. And that's what Justin Fields and Matt Nagy have to do right now. Matt Nagy, for some odd reason, has this sort of plan in his head that, hey, I'm starting Andy Dalton. But that's wrong. I mean, Justin Fields is a clear better quarterback. And if you want to save your job, if you want Justin Fields to be the best quarterback, you have to start him against the Raiders. I know the Raiders are a hard team, but the way that a quarterback is going to learn is from getting that experience, not by sitting and watching someone like Andy Dalton teach him the wrong things and possibly lose us this game. And people don't know this. Like, the Bears don't have a first-round pick this year. That first-round pick is going to the New York Giants. So you want to have that first-round pick as high as possible so that, so that the Giants can lose off on that trade and you can win that trade. And that's just my opinion on this Justin Fields thing and why he should be starting for the rest of the season.
Absolutely. And you make great points. But something else I'd really like to add is that, I really strongly disagree with Matt Nagy's point and his whatever kind of mentality he has going for him that Andy Dalton is the answer, because he wasn't for Dallas last year. If you look at our schedule, right, you have week 5 against the Raiders. We've talked about that. But then you have a challenging week 6 matchup against the Packers. Week 7, you have the Buccaneers. Week 8, you have the 49ers. And then week 9, you have the Steelers on Monday Night Football. If you look at all of those games and all of those teams, those are complete teams that need some kind of deep ball threat, maybe even somebody that, you need to have a mobile quarterback, somebody that has the potential that maybe hasn't fallen off in the past couple of years in order to maybe try and put your team at the most, the best scenario, right? And Matt Nagy preaches that Andy Dalton is that best scenario, but the entire city of Chicago doesn't see it. So my question is, what is going on in Hallis Hall that is prompting him to say, yeah, Andy Dalton is the answer? How is Ryan Pace backing that up? What does Bill Lazor think? The guy that's calling the plays, who does he want to use, right? It's just something that I completely disagree at. I don't know. Are you wanting to go into Nagy right now? Because I've got plenty of stuff on him right now, man.
No, let's do it. First, I want to speak to what you just said. So we play, who do we play, Bruce? We play the Raiders this week. Then we play, Green Bay, then Tampa, and then 49ers, right? I got that correct, or did I miss?
I believe so, yeah.
So looking at that schedule, that's a hard schedule. But honestly, if you have Justin Fields, you could beat. So right now, the Raiders are losing to a mobile quarterback in Justin Herbert, a guy who is able to run that play action, a guy who's able to lose his legs and move the ball down the field, and a guy who's very, very talented and has similar game towards Justin Fields. And I think that if Chicago Bears copy the same game plan that the LA Chargers are doing right now. They copy their former coach, Brandon Staley, who was on the Bears, might I presume. If they copy whatever Brandon Staley did, they can win that game. Then they play Green Bay. Green Bay lost week 1 against Jameis Winston and the Saints. The Saints just lost this week. For some odd reason, I have no idea how, to Daniel Jones and the New York Giants. If the Bears copy the same game plan that the Saints did, they can beat Green Bay. Then, if they copy whatever the Patriots did, and I think Justin Fields will be more successful against the Buccaneers than the Patriots were, because of Justin Fields and his ability to move up down the field and his ability to use his legs, unlike someone like Mac Jones. I think the Bears can possibly beat the Buccaneers, and then we end it against the 49ers, who possibly by that game will be having Trey Lance starting. Jimmy Garoppolo probably won't be back by then. So again, the 49ers are another beatable team. And if you're Matt Nagy, if you start Justin Fields against those 4 teams and you win against those 4 teams, you know what? You're not getting fired this year. You're keeping your job. So if Matt Nagy wants to keep his job this season, he has to start Justin Fields. But for some odd reason that us Bears fans do not understand, that the NFL fans don't understand, that the NFL sports analysts don't understand, Matt Nagy is way over his head. He has this mentality that, hey, I'm right. It's going to go against my game plan. And I'm the master. I'm the Jedi. I'm the Sith Lord. I'm Palpatine. And this is Order 66. And I'm not diverting from it. But we all see what happens when you stick to a plan. It almost never works. Order 66 had so many failures, with Anakin almost getting killed. So if you're Matt Nagy, you have to adapt. You have to say, you know what? I'm wrong. Andy Dalton is not going to be the best chance to win. And you know what? I'm not the best play caller here. So Bill Lazor, you're the play caller for the rest of the season. I'm just going to go and be a head coach. Because as you and I both know, Matt Nagy is a terrible play caller. I think all Bears fans know that. But the question still remains, is Matt Nagy a great head coach? And does he deserve to be a head coach with the Chicago Bears? And does he deserve to have a job as Chicago Bears head coach? That is what Matt Nagy has to prove these 4 games by starting Justin Fields. If he does, Matt Nagy's already getting a job. Bears fans are already cheering for him. Bears fans are already on their toes for Matt Nagy to be retained as the Chicago Bears head coach. If not, Matt Nagy can see the door, and you can have some new head coaches like Joe Brady. You can possibly bring in Lincoln Riley. You can bring in Brian Daboll. Whatever scenario happens, I'm all for it. But I'm all for it. So we'll have to see what happens. But Ryan, I just spoke on a lot. What are your thoughts on Matt Nagy, and what do you want to share to my audience about, Matt Nagy and your thoughts on him?
See, here's the thing. When it comes to Nagy, he really needs to put his ego aside when it comes to his coaches, like you said. He has to credit Bill Lazor more. When he was talking at his press conference this past week, right after the whole Lions game and after the offensive success, he was saying how it was more of a collaboration, how everybody had a say on it, and that he was still a crucial part of it. The way that it was translated between majority of the analysts was that we're not here if I didn't sacrifice that, right? And I can guarantee you, if you ask a pregnant woman her position when it comes to her husband's standpoint, if the husband were to stand in the hospital and say, we're not here without me, while his wife is giving birth, he's sleeping on the couch for the next year and a half. I can guarantee it. But when it comes to his coaching, it's something that, instead of looking for the whys and why certain things happened and why certain things played out in games, right? He needs to find out why people are asking these questions about him. What did he do to have all of these questions come up? It's nothing about the team, because the talent's there. It's all about how you utilize those talents and how you play with those skill sets, right? Whereas, if you sit here and say, like, maybe if I just game plan a different way, maybe if I, call different plays now, maybe if I call 47 other different screen passes, we'll succeed. It's not going to work that way. It's just not going to be the way that it is in Chicago, and Bill Lazor knows that, right? So when it comes to Matt Nagy being a good coach, there's plenty of stuff that needs to be looked at, and I could sit here and rant to you all day, right? But the thing that people don't realize is that he's an outstanding locker room presence when he is on that positive mindset, right? He pushes the players. And if you look in all of the, off-season, training camp, preseason, all the film, players like David Montgomery, players like Justin Fields, Nick Foles, even some of the receivers are loving Matt Nagy and his energy. Look at Akeem Hicks. I can guarantee you that energy is not matched without Matt Nagy being there. Okay. He sparks up this locker room so much to the point to where it's something that is necessary, but it's whether or not you want that as a head coach or you want that as a cheerleader. And it needs to be addressed in Hallis Hall immediately. But if you look at, for an example, the Browns game that everybody doesn't like to talk about, right? Nobody likes to even think about what happened the week before Detroit. His offense looked just completely and utterly confused. So, you look at Cody Whitehair that left his assignment multiple times. They used the 5-man protection against the top 3 defense in the league. They used the 5-man protection against 4 guys and they still lost, but we'll get into the offensive line later. And one thing that really ticked me off is that he used Andy Dalton's playbook with a quarterback that isn't at all like Andy Dalton. And so something that I'd like to point out for everybody that doesn't really have access to film is that if you look at the 11-minute, 55-second mark on the NFL highlight reel featured on YouTube, Fields has no line to protect him. If you look at everyone out of the 5 guys that's supposed to block, 1 guy is actually on his assignment and everyone else is standing and looking at what's going on. This sums up the entire game. This sums up the entire play calling and the scheme that he apparently put in the week before that just flat out didn't work. So it's something that he probably looked at when it came to the Detroit week. Ryan Pace had to have said something to him. Bill Lazor had to have said something. I'm pretty sure that I read a report that Nick Foles had said something to him. But there comes a time in which you have to set your ego aside and you have to give other people credit because it's just flat out not working, whatever you're trying to do.
Exactly. And ego can kill a head coach. And there have been some really bad head coaches who have had their ego taken away. Like, I forget his name, but he's one of the worst. KTO made a video on him. I really forgot his name. I'm so sorry, everyone. Hopefully it comes to me later and I can look it up in a little bit. But KTO made a video on this college head coach who came to the NFL, one of the worst head coaches in the NFL. Nick Saban, one of the best college coaches, failed in the NFL. And I don't know if that because of ego or because it just didn't work out. But if Matt Nagy lets his ego take over him, he will fail and he will get fired this year. He might even get fired mid-season. The Bears might do something mid-season and Matt Nagy might get fired because we have to remember one thing. This is just not on Matt Nagy. If Matt Nagy fails this year, possibly George McCaskey goes with that new stadium. I don't know if the owners can afford that. I'm sorry. Ted Phillips goes. I don't know why Ted Phillips is with the Bears, but Ted Phillips goes. Ryan Pace goes. Everyone goes if Matt Nagy fails. Everyone is on the chopping block here, including George McCaskey. Because let me tell you, I think that when the fortunate day that Virginia McCaskey unfortunately passes away, I don't think that the ownerships have enough shares to keep the Chicago Bears team, continue owning that team. That's going to go to a brand new owner. I think if the Chicago Bears fail this year, they're going to get a few calls from Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, other rich people and saying, hey, can I buy your team? Because it doesn't look like you're running this team properly. So let me do it. I'll build you a brand new stadium in Arlington Heights, a state-of-the-art stadium. And I'll bring back winning Chicago Bears football. And the fans are already going to cheer for that. The fans want that. Matt Nagy, so everyone is on a chopping block here. And if you're Matt Nagy, if you don't start Justin Fields this against the Raiders, you might as well just start packing your bags and heading out of Chicago. Because there's no way you are continuing as a head coach if you don't start Justin Fields. You are going to become the worst head coach. The worst head coach. You're going to be on the same tier as Urban Meyer. After that video, you're going to be on the same tier with the guy who had a very interesting time at a bar this past weekend, and that's not a good look for Matt Nagy. He has to start Justin Fields, so he will be the worst head coach, and I am not understating this at all.
Yeah, you made great points. And as far as, starting Justin Fields goes, as you were talking, it made me think of this idea that, if Matt Nagy is, if he is decided to be fired and some new coach comes in and Justin Fields turns out to be this stud that everybody knows he can be, his coaching stock is going to go down. It's not going to land him another job anywhere else. It's not going to be something like a Mike McCarthy situation with Dallas. It's not going to prompt anybody to even look at this guy. He's going to be downgraded to potentially a quarterback coach with his background as a quarterback. But even that's in question, because if you don't start a quarterback, what do you really know about quarterbacks? That's the only question I have in mind just for that scenario. It's all a big headache.
Exactly. And if you look at all the quarterbacks in the Matt Nagy system, at least for the Bears, most of them have failed. I mean, I don't want to bring up Mitch here. I want to let my boy sail into the wind and have that good time. But Mitch failed because of Matt Nagy. Nick Foles failed because of Matt Nagy. Andy Dalton failed because of Matt Nagy. And Justin Fields failed because of Matt Nagy. Matt Nagy will be the worst head coach in Chicago Bears football, and he will never get a job. Never mind him winning 2018 NFL Coach of the Year. That's in the past. He will be on the same tier as Adam Gase. He will be on the same tier as Urban Meyer if and when he gets fired, which he probably will, looking at what the Jaguars are doing right now. So, Matt Nagy, you have to start Justin Fields. And I think that's all we're going to say, because I know the fans, whoever's watching this, my viewers, I think they know it. I think you know it. I don't have to speak on this any further. What is good, everyone? I hope you enjoyed that interview I just did with Ryan, with us talking about motivation and how rejection led us to start our YouTube channels, to start our dreams, so that, you guys can start your YouTube channels and you guys can start your dreams, because I want this channel to be more about the Bears. I want to help you guys be the best version of yourself. So I hope that part of it helped you guys become the best version of yourself. And then us talking about Justin Fields and Matt Nagy and the controversial decisions Matt Nagy makes as a head coach. And if you enjoyed that video, make sure to first go and subscribe to Ryan's channel, smash that like button, hit notifications, because I have a part 2 to this interview coming up tomorrow and more videos this week coming out. So make sure you hit notifications so you know when I post. And with that all being said, peace out and bear down.